If the same principles that guide cold case investigations are supposed to guide our investigation into the resurrection, why are there different standards for when supernatural causation should be considered?
Well, I'm not sure I understand what different standards are. I think that we look at cause and causes and causality, and we look at what the actual effects are, and we try to figure out which is the most reasonable cause that will explain these effects. So I'm not quite sure that there's a different standard necessarily.
Let me ask you this, and maybe this will help clear up the question.
Okay.
Have you ever appealed to a miracle to explain what happened in a cold case?
Okay, so what we do in all of our looking at a set of evidences in a crime scene is we begin with the simplest causal factors, and then we move toward those. And by the way, if the evidence does not point to those, the quickest, cops are lazy, I'll be honest with you. If we can take this guy to jail tonight, so if we get to a scene and we go, wow, this looks like somebody who lived with her. Well, then we're looking at, is there some neighbor or some? We're moving outside the simplest answer to the more distant answers. And at some point, we don't stop in that process until we hit an answer. And if we look at the first layer and we don't hit that answer, we move to the next layer. Now, so yes, and on my cases, they have all been explainable by the closest concentric layer to the victim. If I couldn't explain those things, well, then I'd have to assume something else. But in my cases, where I'm looking at created beings who are killing other created beings, the evidence always happens to point to a created being. So I'm able to stop at the most concentric circle. So yeah, am I open though to look at some point? If it cannot be explained by any physical process involving causal agents that are material, then of course I would have to jump to another level. But I've never had to do that in my cases because, again, we start the most concentric and we work out from there. And I've always been, and once we hit a suspect that actually accounts for all the evidence, we stop looking.
Gotcha.
And so that's what we do. And that's what I've been able to do in all my cases. So yeah, it's not as though I'm opposed. Mm-hmm. Again, look, I'm not opposed to extranatural causes, but I don't run to extranatural causes. And I've been pretty consistent with this even in my life as a Christian, is that a lot of us as Christians will say, well, isn't God good that he did this? Or we assume God's supernatural activity is the direct first pusher over of dominoes in our lives, when in fact, this may be something way down the line. That's just that there's both supernatural and natural activity we have to account for. I as a scientist, for many years before the Enlightenment, scientists considered both natural causes and supernatural beings, right? But we don't attribute everything immediately to God.
Exactly.
We start closest to the victim, basically, and we work our way out. And so I think that's what I try to do in my death investigations.
Very good. Very good.